Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lead's first session of our leadership series. It's so great to have you all here. My name is Brittany Fraser. I am Lead's interim program chair and interim marketing communications chair. My formal title is conference and events coordinator for Chaff's Facilities Management. I've been on campus for about a year and a half now, but I was a student worker prior to that. We also have Lela on this call, so I'll go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Brittany, for the handoff. As Brittany said, I'm Lela Dennis. I'm the Director of Employee and Organizational Development, and I reside in Central Human Resources. I have been with UCR, gosh, it's 11 months yesterday. Woo woo. Congratulations to me. I've made it. I'm still here. And anyway, happy to be here and happy to see all of you wonderful attendees wanting to find out information about relationship building.
Thank you, Lela. Do you want to go ahead and start it off?
Sure. Well, I know one of the first things we wanted to do is get a temperature check, if you will, on where you are within relationship building as far as if you are a new manager, a manager that is aspiring to be, or you're aspiring to be a manager, a new manager, or you've been in your role for a while now. So I believe, Brittany, do we have a poll to kick that off?
I think we'll just go ahead and have everybody kind of chat in where they are in their relationship building. So if you want to go ahead and use that chat feature, and we'll kind of see where everybody's at.
Yes, just let us know if you are new to managing or aspire to be a manager, or you're just an old pro looking to pick up some best practices. All right. Aspiring. Good, good, good. Okay, Susie, 10 years. That's awesome. You could probably teach us a few things here and there. Okay, and Tanya, same thing. You're an old pro looking to continue that professional growth. Love it. Okay. Andrew, relatively new. Okay, of course, Jeff G. Oh, pro. Oh, and then we had, let's see, let me go back up here real quick. We had Dennis, as well as, is it Melba? It cuts me off here. So I believe, do I see? I'm going to say it's Mel B, but I don't see. Oh, Melbert. Okay, thank you. Okay, Melbert. Okay, so the aspiring leaders. All right, and let's scroll down a little bit more. Okay, so it looks like we've got somewhat of a mixture of some old pros and some aspiring leaders, which is good. Love to see that. So we thought we would run our time here today. Just first of all, thank you so much for giving us that overview. But we thought we would just give you some best practices, some tips as to how you can continue to build that relationship, not only from a management perspective, but also from an individual contributor that you are, and how you can also continue to build relationships with your managers, because I think that's also important, especially as you aspire to be that leader. So I think the information that we have for you will suit both purposes. One of the things that I did want to bring your attention to, and we will provide all of these resources to you after the presentation, as soon as we get an idea, or all of the folks that's on the call, you will get this information through Brittany in an email. But yeah. One of the good books that I read when I was became a a leader and then a manager and having to manage others was the 90-Minute Manager book. And it is located on Amazon. It's a book by David Bolchover, and he co-wrote it with Chris Brady. It's not an expensive book, but it's called The 90-Minute Manager. And one of the key takeaways that I really got from that book was when you are in a management role and you have direct reports, one of the best ways to build a relationship with them is to have somewhat like a meet and greet or a one-on-one, but not in the office. They did make it very clear that when you are building relationships, especially for the first time, to do it in another type of environment. Go have a cup of coffee or have tea, or take your direct report out to lunch or brunch or breakfast, whatever the case may be. I say happy hour, but we can wait a while before we do happy hour, especially when we're building those new relationships. But it's always good to have another type of environment other than being in the office. Since we're on campus and we have such a beautiful campus, when we are there, there are so many nice spots to have a one-on-one or a meet and greet, or just to get to know you. Even having a nice walk on a nice fall day would be awesome, which is what I'm thinking about now, even though we're here on Zoom. But always keep that in mind. Brittany, I don't know if you want to add anything there before we actually get into some tips and best practices.
Yeah, I know for me personally, when building relationships, a lot of times because I am closer to the humanities building and the arts building, Ivans was like my main place to go to meet people and just have those chats and have those conversations. So picking a spot on campus when we are on campus, I know right now the world is different, but you could even set up kind of like a virtual coffee run on Zoom where you both have coffee and it's more casual than just a professional type of environment.
Yes, yes. And you know what, just to kind of throw it back to the group and just to hear from either Susie or Tanya or even Jeff, do you have any tips or best practices of different types of good reads that you had to support you in becoming that awesome manager that you are?
Hey, I'll go. I am in the unique position where I think actually somebody I managed for several years is on this call, Melbert. So Melbert, feel free to interrupt if I'm making all of this up. But I remember when I worked with Melbert in his department, that everybody's on a different part or portion of their path on their journey. And so everybody's in a different position. And then along with that, and this is something I had to learn when I was a new manager, is, everybody wants something different. So not everybody wants to aspire to the next level. Some folks are very happy where they are, or some people are looking to kind of retrain and do something completely different. So I really think you have, as a manager, you have to the very first thing you have to do is you have to listen. You have to kind of see where everybody's at, what they want to do, and then do your best to support them. I used to tell Melbert, really my job is just to remove obstacles for you. But everybody's got different challenges. So I don't know if that was exactly what you asked, but that would be the advice I would give.
Okay, no, thanks, Jeff. Any particular reads that you had, or was it just when you became a manager and had to manage others, was there a favorite book that you went to, or anything that you might be willing to share?
Well, this is I wouldn't necessarily say there was a book, but I will say I do want to, throw it back and promote our OED team, because it was the Building Corps Supervisory BCOE, Building Corps,
Building
BCSE.
Supervisory
competencies. Yes. Honestly, I think it should be. I was on a task force, and I said that actually should be required for everyone.
Okay.
And I've recommended it several times. What I like about it is it's a 6 to 8 month program. You meet with a cohort at least once a month, and it hits every aspect of the spectrum. So there may be things that you're strong in, but you're gonna speak to the ombudsman. You're gonna learn about bargaining and represented employees. You're gonna learn about crucial conversations and delegation. And it really is, for anybody on this call, I think you're still eligible even if you're not a manager, if you're an aspiring manager. So definitely check it out. It is by far the most effective course I think I've ever taken, preparing you to be a manager.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And thanks for the plug. EOD always likes to get a good plug. Susie, you took yourself off mute. Do you have any good reads or any words of wisdom you can provide?
Yeah. Sorry, let me turn on my camera really quickly. Honestly, I feel that I'm constantly trying to learn and grow. So I don't know in terms of words of wisdom. I could just tell you from like mistakes I've made and things like that. I think Jeff is exactly on point, learning to find people where they are and not necessarily where you want them to be. And then helping them, within the scope of the mission and the vision of the organization to simultaneously meet that where they want to be and where you need them to be. In terms of reading, I did a program, and part of the core curriculum that we went through in one of the courses was books by Parker Palmer. I had to look him up just to remember. And he has a text called A Hidden Wholeness, and his leadership style is a service leader, and it just resonated with me tremendously. So, I mean, I would recommend that if you are in line, or if you lean towards that type of a leadership model. There are plenty of them out there, but that is the one that resonated with me is the service leader, and Parker Palmer is a great, I'll put his name in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Susie. Yes, A Hidden Wholeness. That sounds awesome.
I do have a book, but for the life of me, I cannot remember my name. It was one actually that Julie Salgado offered, and I see that she is on this call. What was the book that you gave me when I started at CFM, Julie? Do you remember?
Oh, geez. I'm trying to think. Is it the pyramid one?
Yes.
So it was different leadership styles, but I can't remember the exact title either. And I think Charlene, actually, I let her borrow the book. She's on this call.
Coming full circle here.
Yep. This book has been passed around.
I love it. Oh, Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Yeah, that's a good book, Jeff. Yeah. Okay, and Parker Palmer. Okay, A Hidden Wholeness, The Journey Toward an Undivided Life. Awesome. Thank you, Susie.
Yeah, Charlene, do you have that book?
I don't. I gave it back to Julie. I don't remember the title of it, but it's by John Maxwell. I'm positive. Look it up.
Maxwell. Is it the 21 Irrefutable?
No, but that is on my list.
Okay. Yeah, there's so many good books out there. We may have to start a leaderboard list, book club or something, so that we can keep up with all these great books. Well, if you can think of it while we're on the call, please feel free to chat it in. And thank you so much. There are some key lessons that I did want to share with you. And again, I will pass or make sure that you get a copy of this information. But when we think about building relationships, especially from a manager perspective, one of the things we have to keep in mind is at least 25% of our time should be spent in building that relationship. I say even more, because when you become a leader, some of the things that we have to keep in mind is that or become not just a leader, but a manager of people, I'll put it that way. We have to really ask ourselves, do we like people? And are we okay with having constant conversations and communications with others and supporting them in building their careers, because as part of a people manager, that is what we really have to embody, and making sure that we're okay with that. It doesn't really matter if you're an extrovert or an introvert, because anyone can develop that type of professional relationship, but you have to make sure that you really ask yourself that question, because in a sense you are responsible for others, and you want to make sure that the journey that you have together is pleasurable, memorable, enjoyable, and that your direct reports get something out of that, and as well as you beginning to build that trust and that loyalty, and then having different conversations with them surrounding that. So one of the key lessons is to understand that anyone can build that productive relationships, a relationship, and a relationship should always be balanced. It should be balanced between the professional as well as the personal sense of it, because when you are in that managerial position, you always want to build that professional relationship, but it's always a good thing to make sure that you know a little bit about them from a personal aspect of it, because you really need to learn them and know what they're about, know what motivates them. So that's always key, to make sure that you do have a good balance there. And make sure that there is a good mix with the relationships that you have, and not, as Jeff said, put everyone into one particular category. Know your individuals or your employees for who they are and how they operate. Know their strengths, know their weaknesses. As you're building those relationships, that's always a good thing to keep in mind. Know how they think. And that helps as well when you begin to delegate tasks to them, knowing their strengths and their weaknesses, and how they think, and what they're passionate about. Also keep in mind that quality is more important than quantity. So it's not about the number of one-on-ones that you have, and just to check the box to say I have them on my calendar and I meet with them. It's the quality of those one-on-ones. So think about how you can make the best out of the one-on-ones, and even changing them up a little, especially because we're in this virtual environment. And then something else that Jeff alluded to is accepting people the way that they are. Don't try to put them in a different type of square or a peg. Just make sure that you accept them from who they are, learn who they are, and that can always build relationships. Something that Susie mentioned is that she she can share the different types of successes she's had, as well as the mistakes that she's made. And one of the documents that I'll give you, it talks about the 7 common relationship mistakes. So just to go over a few of them, only contacting people when you want something. That's a huge mistake. Never do that. Reach out to them on an ongoing basis. Asking for favors too soon, too often. You don't want to make sure you do that, and you don't want to do that until you've actually built a great rapport. Getting caught up going after a big fish and ignoring the little people who are important too, and sometimes just as powerful behind the scenes. So keep that in mind. Not communicating frequently enough to maintain the relationships. I know sometimes we can get bogged down in all of the projects that we have. However, keep in mind that we have signed up to be that leader of people, so we have got to make sure that we keep that open door and not get bogged down or sidetracked with other things that will take us away from that responsibility. And ignoring or hiding emotions. One of the things that I find very key to being a leader and building relationships is the transparency and the authenticness of your leadership style. I know we had a conversation, I believe, on a call, and Julie Salgado and I were on, and we talked about what good leaders are to us. And, you know, while we say being present and being motivated, you know, being authentic and being transparent in how you communicate are very key. Not dealing with relationship problems quickly and directly enough. And that has to do also with feedback, not giving timely feedback. We want to make sure that we do that. And another thing that Jeff said, we have to listen. So a mistake is talking more than listening. So we always want to make sure that we have our listening skills up to par and that we are listening as much as we can. You know, I always say there's a reason that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So
I love that, Lela.
that means that we do need to listen a little bit more than we use that 1 mouth that we have. Brittany, anything to add to that?
Just on like the level of, you know, keeping things personal but professional. I know in my office pre-COVID, my boss, when we were all getting bogged down or we all had a busy day or something, he would take us for ice cream and we would kind of discuss our days while we were eating ice cream on campus. We tended to have lunches together. So it was a time that usually would be separate from the office and whatever, but we would take that time together to kind of team build and just chat and, you know, get away from work as a team. So that's kind of a way to build your team together.
Yes.
I may not be a manager, but as a direct report, that's kind of how I saw it.
Well, good. No, and that's good. It's good that we do have that feedback from our direct reports. And that's another thing we as leaders need to be willing and open to do is to get the feedback from our direct reports. Ask them how we're doing. Don't just assume that we're doing the best job possible. So be willing to ask your direct reports for feedback and just say, hey, how am I doing? Or if you're willing to share with me some things that could even make me a better leader for you, that's also a good idea too. And I did see that Tanya put in several books, Daniel Pink, one of my favorite authors there, as well as Patrick Lencioni. So thank you, Tanya, for that and sharing these titles with us. We'll be sure to include those in our references as well.
Yeah, and Charlene did include that book. It's called The 5 Levels of Leadership, and it's basically the pyramid of leadership and how you kind of move up that pyramid.
Awesome. Awesome. Gosh, these are some good titles that we could probably do some mini sessions on, workshops in the future. Just to keep
absolutely.
Oh, okay. So some other good ways to build stronger relationships, not only up, but also across your management styles and your organizations, because one of the documents that I'll give you and some of the highlights in there, it says that your success as a manager is highly dependent upon other people in the organization. So keep that in mind. And they stress about proactively building those relationships because your performance and success do depend on that. So some of the things, and I can resonate, especially with the first one, it says, learn as much as you can about how your manager thinks, works, and communicates. And that's one of the things that I did early on with one of the managers that I thought was a great leader. I wanted to find out what her what was. So it's what's your what? And your what has to do with what are your manager's values, responsibilities, goals, what's their leadership style, what's their communication style, understanding their strengths and weaknesses. So finding out what your manager's what is can help you build a great relationship with your manager. And I would even say that to we as leaders, sharing that with our direct reports, letting them know, here's my what. You know, even if your what is, I always love to make sure that people are on time to meetings. It just gets me, it's like a pet peeve of mine if you're late, because to me, being late shows disrespect. You know, finding out what is with your manager will help you along the way, as well as we as managers just letting our direct reports know. Develop.
Yeah. And on that note, Lela, on the whole needing people and and letting people know your what's. Something to keep in mind too, as an event coordinator myself, and I'm sure as some of you other aspiring leaders, you have people that you're in contact with on a consistent basis. They may not be direct reports, but they are, your coworkers, your clientele base, people that you're working with, and they also need to know what your what's are. I know when I started my job, my first thing that I did was actually meeting with those other event coordinators on campus that I work with on a day-to-day basis to make sure that they knew what I expected and I knew what they expected. That way there was this open line of communication between us.
Absolutely. And those expectations were set so there's no misunderstandings, which is key. Thank you, Brittany. That's awesome. Another one is develop a way of communicating that suits your manager's preferences. So finding out how they like to communicate, how often they like to communicate, even if it will help you have some type of a template built so that when you're going through a one-on-one, you'll understand what your manager's desired level of information is going to be, and you can just put those in a bullet point and have a conversation around that one-on-one template or whatever the template is called. So making sure that you know how they best communicate or what their preferences are, and then be strategic about when you share the information. Sometimes we'll just have bullet points of all the information that we want to share, but be strategic about that, because there are some things that you might be able to wait till your next one-on-one, or it might not be a need to know, but maybe a want to know. So keep those things in mind too. And then ask specific questions to clarify your manager's expectations and seek feedback on your work. So clarifying expectations, as Brittany talked about a little bit ago, making sure that we know what those expectations are, and we know how what our managers what is when it comes to those expectations, when it comes to deadlines. Those are all key things. And then balance giving your manager reinforcement feedback as well as sharing the tough truths. As you begin to build relationships, you want to be able to be as transparent as possible and share those tough truths, because what we have to keep in mind is those are the truths that can help us grow. So that if we are willing and open to hearing those tough truths as well as giving them, we're setting ourselves up for success by knowing these are just opportunities to help us grow. So keep that in mind.
And for those aspiring leaders out there, even if you're not necessarily supervising people, but maybe you're supervising a student staff group, that's all things that you can do with your student staff group to kind of grow yourself and continue to kind of gain those skills as you move forward.
Yes. Thank you, Brittany. And also being solution-oriented whenever possible. I can recall back in the day when I was a sales manager, and I would always tell my employees, don't just come to me with the problem, always bring the solution, because we can sit here and hem and haw and talk about all these problems, but if we don't have a solution, what good is it? So we really want to be able to learn from that. So, keep that in mind. Here's a situation, but here's how I would approach it. So managers love to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
So if that's something also to keep in mind. And then a couple of things just for building a good peer relationship. Make a list of the colleagues whose work links to yours, and focus on building and strengthening those key relationships. So again, even our title is so broad, building relationships, but even though it's coming through lead, we always want to keep in mind that, we're all peers of each other. So we want to make sure that we continue to build those peer relationships, and keep the collaboration going. Be proactive in sharing mutually beneficial information. So in other words, don't be stingy. Let's share all that good information, share the knowledge that we have, share the experiences that we have. That's how we're going to grow and learn from each other, and learn what could work for us and what could not work for us. So those are key things to keep in mind. Take advantage of brief or chance encounters to spark creative conversations. So, teams, they do have a tendency to fall into those idea ruts, but people whose networks that expand outside of your current groups, they do have a higher chance of having more or broader ideas. So keep that in mind as well. And then again, actively seek feedback about your ideas and projects, but only if you genuinely want the input. So make sure you're willing to hear that information. But again, I just gave you little snippets of that document that we will send out. And I think another good thing to keep in mind when you're building relationships, especially from a leader perspective, is deciding what type of leader, as the book that Julie recommended, the 5 different styles of leaderships. But even if we break it down into 3 styles of leaderships, because I always like to break things down in 3s, because we as humans always can remember things in 3s. There are 3 types of leaders that are out there, and these may resonate with the book that you read, Brittany and Charlene. You have a collaborative leader, you have a command and control leader, and then you have a passive leader. Now, these leadership styles, they're going to work in all types of situations for the good, as well as sometimes not for the good. It just depends on when you're utilizing those leadership styles. For example, when you have a command and control leader, some of us can think of a command and control as being that micromanager leader, and that's not how we want to use that leadership style. A command and control leader is best utilized when there are emergencies that come up or deadlines that need to be met, and we can't hem and haw about them. Sometimes we do need to put on that command and control leader hat. A passive leader that we don't want is someone that doesn't really care about your team and just says, oh, go ahead and do what you want. I'm just going to stand on the sideline, and that's it. That's not a good example of a passive leader. A passive leader is someone that has a high-performing team that has the trust in their team to say, you got this, go do what you need to do. If you need me, let me know. That is what we would want to have our passive leader look like. And then we have our collaborative leader. Collaborative leader is where we really kind of want to stay and then stem off into the other types of leadership. But that collaborative leader, you are involving your team. You're involving all of that communication, getting feedback. Well, what do you think, team? Well, how should we approach this? What do you think is the best opportunity? We always want to have that collaborative style of leadership. So for me, I always look at those 3 types of leadership and decide, where do I want to be? When do I want to be it? I know I want to stay as a collaborative leader, but there are going to be times where I can be passive or I have to be a command and control leader. So other tips to keep in mind.
Yeah, I know myself, at least with my student staff, that I very much bounce around between those 3 as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's important because sometimes you do need to be that take charge person when there is an emergency happening. But being collaborative majority of the time just fosters, more engagement throughout your team.
Right.
A couple of things that I do want to kind of just make sure are said for those aspiring leaders. I read an article in Gardner about taking networking to building relationship capital. And there were 3 specific tips for doing that. Because we all know that networking is important, but then it's how do you take that networking and turn it into a lasting relationship? The first tip was don't take anything personal. So if you're not able to build that relationship, if for some reason it's not working, don't take it personally. Don't let it bog you down and not build future relationships. Keep going. There's more people out there to connect with and network with and build relationships with, so just keep going. The second was find your tribe. There's people out there that you're naturally drawn to and who are naturally drawn to you. And so you want to go towards those people that you're naturally drawn toward, who you connect with. And then the third was leverage your manager. So talk to your manager. They know people out there who you may not be in contact with. sit in on, you know, if your manager will let you sit in on a meeting just to kind of see how things operate. Maybe you'll network with someone there and be able to build a relationship there. So just kind of finding those ways to build those relationships.
Great. Thank you, Brittany. That's awesome. Yeah, we have to keep in mind that because some of us out here are aspiring leaders, and, you know, students are going to be future leaders and employees as well. So having that opportunity to share that knowledge and experience it with them is great. Before we open it up to any type of Q&A or just feedback or thoughts that you may have on the call, it's always good to keep in mind the maintenance that we have with maintaining those good relationships. So another document that I will send out to you are the 4 best practices for maintaining relationships. And I'll just run through the 4 of them really quick. Number 1 is make time to stay in touch. So always keeping in mind that, you know, relationships are ongoing. My motto is always, if you build good relationships, you're going to get the results that you want. So you can take that from a personal perspective to a professional perspective. Building relationships will equal results, but make time to always stay in touch. Always remember the little things. It's not the big things that count all the time. It's those little things, things that you observe, things that you can comment on, you know, those little details that you can share when you're having discussions or giving feedback. These are the things that really show that you care. So you want to keep that in mind, and they do go a long way. Follow through on your commitments. That's number 3, making sure that you always follow through on those commitments. That's critical to you as being reliable, being able to follow through on those commitments. You know, nobody wants to work with a flake or someone that's indecisive. So making sure that you follow through on the commitments is key. And then lastly, address any differences, issues, or problems quickly. Don't let them manifest. Some of us don't like to, we don't like confrontation. So we'll tend to just let things sit on the burner for a long while and stew a little bit or simmer. We don't want that. You know, we have to learn to be very proactive when it comes to us addressing issues that, or even giving that immediate feedback, whether it's reinforcement feedback or developmental feedback. We want to make sure that we can do that sooner rather than later. So any of those differences or issues that you have, respond to them quickly. Don't try to see if they'll work themselves out. You know, we can all learn by mistakes, and I'm sure we've been in these leadership positions where we've said, oh, I'm just going to wait and see how it works out. And sometimes this doesn't do that well for us. So if we can, let's make sure that we address them quickly. And so I think at this time, we're doing pretty good on time, but if there's anyone that wants to take themselves off mute and ask any questions or share any information that you, or experiences that you've had as a leader, or those that are aspiring to be leaders, what you've experienced, please, let's take this time and have an open forum.
Hi, ladies. I just want to say thank you. This is awesome. And I wanted to mention about accountability partners. I know like Jeff and I are accountability partners. Me and Charlene, we meet bi-weekly or monthly, Charlene. And then like others on here, I know Crystal, Dennis, on my staff assembly crew. And then me and Albert and Brittany, we do our little coffee chats once every other week, maybe. So I think it's good to have an accountability partner, especially if they know you're, say you're going to go get your master's degree or something that they can keep you accountable to. Like if you say you really want something, they're able to help you get those resources or just encourage you. So I just want to say how important that was.
Yes, Julie, I totally agree. Accountability partners are great. They don't just work good at the gym, they work good in professional environments too. So thank you for that.
That they do. We do have a question in the chat from Dennis. How do you rebuild a relationship?
Ah, good question, Dennis. Well, we can open it up to the group, but I can share with you from my experience some of the ways that I rebuild a relationship depending on where it is. I always like to confront it head on. So the key that you know that there has to be some type of rebuilding of relationships, that's where you start from, and having that conversation with the person, whether it's, you know, I notice that things aren't the same or the way that they used to be in our relationship. So if you have a moment now, or can we set some time to talk about how can we look at this, or how did we get here? You know, what happened to this relationship, and how do we move forward to make it better? I want it to be better. I'm hoping you want it to be better. So how do we begin to move forward? So I think by my experiences with rebuilding relationships is just opening up to that conversation and saying, I'm seeing that things aren't the same. So what can we do?
I think it's also going into those conversations very much with an open mind and being able to listen and hear maybe the other person's perspective of what happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Anyone else have anything to offer?
And Dennis, did that answer your question? Okay. Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to make one more comment, Lela, what you mentioned about don't be stingy with your relationships that you have. I know I love to share if I'm walking across campus and someone's with me and we come up against someone that I've known for a while, I'll introduce them to the person I'm with so that they get to know them. If they see them later at an event or on campus, it's just spreading the net all around campus. So I wanted to just add that as well.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Julie. Absolutely. You know, and another thing I think about that I do with my team is I always make sure that I recognize them and let them know that I see what they're doing, and I see how important their efforts are, especially during the time of COVID and the, you know, sometimes even the extra hours that they put in. I make sure that I recognize them and let them know that I see exactly what it is they're doing when I give them, and I give them feedback on that, or, you know, even when we're in our team meetings, just making sure that they are recognized. So, you know, if you do have opportunities just to send little notes or, you know, however you know, communicate with your team, just letting them know that you see them and that you appreciate them.
And also for those looking to potentially build relationships and network, getting involved in the campus organizations is an awesome way. I know I've been a part of LEAD since March, and it's been an amazing opportunity. I've been able to get to know Lela and a good portion of staff assembly and all these different people just through, you know, communicating. There's so many different groups across campus, and I think it's a great way for those who are looking to make those relationships and kind of build their relationships on campus to kind of get your foot in. There's so many different orgs.
Yes. Ah. Okay, anything else? I did want to share with you, because as I was talking about the recognition, and I see that that's great advice and recognition goes a long way. I just wanted to share with you something that I did with my team about a few months ago. I think it was really actually before we got into our COVID environment, but I'll just share this with you. And it was just something that I put together that was actually just a 2-slide PowerPoint, and it just says, "I notice you are so important to me." And then the next slide just gives like a little poem that I said, and it says, I know our world feels topsy-turvy, that what we're doing feels kinds of nervy. All of us are treading new waters, balancing work with care of others, sons and daughters. Hidden behind masks, on a computer or phone, our laughter and smiles are seldom shown. Yet still, I notice you give it your all. Whatever arises, you're there for the call. Together we're doing it, getting it done. With you on my team, the challenge is more fun. Hope it isn't much longer we're forced apart. Till then, I say thank you from deep in my heart. So that had to have been right when COVID hit. And I just said, you're important to me.
That's awesome.
So, just little things like that go a long way. So I try to.
And I'm going to actually take this time to offer something. LEAD is currently doing our leaderboard awards. So if you know a great leader out there, or you know a great aspiring leader, we do have this award going on right now. Those who are nominated will be featured on our social media, as well as the winner. But this is open until this Friday, so get those nominations in, because it's a great way to really nominate those leaders, or even those aspiring leaders. They don't necessarily need to be leading a team, but they can be someone who's aspiring to be a leader, who does get involved, who does go above and beyond. So that's also an opportunity as well.
Yes. Okay.
Julie also wanted me to mention the winner will get a plaque and a certificate as well.
Yes, nice. So many great things out here that we have, and all the great possibilities. Okay, well, if we do, I don't see anything else in the chat. And if we don't have any other last comments, thoughts, or emotional outburst, we'll go ahead and say thank you so much for attending our first leadership series that we're going to continue to do. Please let us know how we're doing. And if there is any topics that you might want to suggest for us, we are always welcome to great ideas. And if there's anything that I can do for you from a employee and organizational development perspective, please feel free to reach out to me. We have a small team, but our team is small but mighty, and we love to partner and collaborate and make sure that we support you in all that you do.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Like Lela said, if you have any suggestions of topics that you want to hear from us, please go ahead and email me at brittany.fraser@ucr.edu. I'm more than willing to take the suggestions. We will be doing another one of these in December. We haven't quite settled on the date, but it'll probably be that second week of December. As I said, go ahead and nominate those leaders for our leaderboard award. You can find our website at lead.ucr.edu. And lastly, I just want to let you know, if you know somebody who couldn't quite make this meeting today, but you think it would be very beneficial for them, I will be posting this up on our YouTube page later today. So
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. You're so welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.